Welcome to VBA Modeling for Supply Chain Planning and Financial Analysis. Here we will teach you how to write your own VBA code within Excel. This will be presented to you by Supply Chain Systems of Miami, Florida. I hope you enjoy the tutorials, and please follow the link in the video description to get your own copy of the VBA code. In lesson number 6, we will examine how to move and copy data around in a spreadsheet. This is a very common practice in supply chain models because you're using many different data sources, and then you have to reformat the information and just grab the information you want for the particular questions and models that you're building. After hitting the F8 key for the first time, we go down to Sheets Data Activate, so we're on that sheet already. Note that the dimension statement up here has two range variables that we're declaring, and we'll go and hit another F8 key, and we'll be highlighting the area from A1 to C5. And this would be a very simple copy, so we're going to take a selection.copy. Then we're going to say where's the target by selecting the cell E1 as our destination. And then we're going to actually execute. So if we wanted to put that onto another spreadsheet, we could have actually said which spreadsheet we were moving it to. But in this case, we're keeping it on the same sheet, so that's why we had the active sheet.paste. All right, the next one here is you've essentially, when you did your copy, you put your information into the clipboard. This one statement here actually cleans up the clipboard. So application.cutCopyMode equals false is actually clearing out the clipboard. Hit the F8 key again. Now this is another way of accomplishing the same thing. We took almost 5 lines of code there in order to be able to accomplish the copy before. This time we're just going to say in one statement, range A1 to C5 dot copy space and then the destination location. So here we're going to take that first block of data and copy it to the top left-hand corner will be A7. And you can see that that accomplished it. All right, another format for being able to do this would be to take your ranges and define them and set them equal to a variable. And if you remember in the dimension statement, we declared 2 variables for the ranges. So range 1 is going to be the range that we're going to copy, and range 2 is going to be our destination. So the next 2 F8 keys that we hit is activating those 2. And then you can see if we want to move the information, instead of copying it now, we're going to actually, just like a copy, paste, and cut kind of command, this is going to say take range1.cut, and that will actually put it into the clipboard but erase the original copy, but then move it to wherever range 2 was. So we'll hit the F8 key and notice what happens, and it now moved it down with the top left hand corner at E7. The next line is a little bit more dramatic in that you don't have to even define the entire block of data. When you have a current region copy, it looks at all of the data that is part of a contiguous block of data. So watch what happens when we do our copy over here and move it. Okay, so it took everything from A1. We had a contiguous block of data from A1 down to C5. And then our destination was down to the left-hand corner of A13. So in this case, we didn't even have to worry about defining where the lower right-hand corner of that block of data was. So this can be fairly powerful and help you and not have to define the endpoints of the top left and bottom right hand corners in order to define where your block of data is. But just be careful with this. It could be a little dangerous if your data is not contiguous and it doesn't quite grab everything. So I don't feel 100% confident with this kind of a command, but it is there for your use if you want to try to use it. Alright, we're going to do something very similar again. This time we're going to move the data from our B3 and say where the current region is. Let's see what happens when we do this one. Alright, so B3, okay, it didn't really matter where we were selected in that particular data set from A1 down to C5. Even though we located the location B3, it actually defined the entire block of data of all the contiguous data that was around it. So it didn't really matter, you can see, between the two different examples that we just executed. Alright, just to ensure we're on the same or the correct worksheet, we'll go ahead and do a sheets data.activate. And now the next one, we are going to actually look at where the endpoint is. This particular statement here allows you to look at a certain column and say we're going to look down this column and that's going to define the last row of that data set. So that's what the end parentheses Excel down actually accomplishes. You can actually see when we hover over this thing, it is showing the values that are in there right now. Alright, let's execute this. Alright, and it moved it to A7. Alright, but notice what it did. It went from A1 to, it picked A1 here and said it's going to look down and it's going to copy everything from the top to the bottom, and that's the range. And then it's going to move the data to A7. So it only picked the one column, okay? But you can see how it now knew from the number of rows that was in that data set of where the bottom row was. And this is very commonly used. I would pay special note of this particular statement here. Alright, the next one is, we'll say the selection. Let's clear the contents. But notice what we're doing. We're picking a range from E1 colon G11, A7 to C25. Let's go ahead and execute this. Alright, it selected that range and it wiped it all out. So we just cleaned up our spreadsheet and we did it all in one statement. So if you knew where you're writing your data to and you wanted to eliminate it, you can do it that way. Alright, notice we're doing the same thing again, A1, and we're going to select another range. Alright, I figured out where that was. Similarly now to what the last row is, you want to know what the last column is. We've moved the focus onto the A5 cell, and if we go to the right and find the last column, okay, it's going to move to the right and keep looking until it finds the last column, and that's what it did. So now it's found the bottom right hand corner of that data set. So this is the syntax and format for writing that code to find the bounds of a data set. Very similar to that current region command up above. I would just suggest that maybe you want to test both methods to make sure it's grabbing everything that you want and pick the method that is going to be the most reliable for you. So play around with it until you get a certain amount of confidence in what you're doing with these things. Alright, and finally, to end up, we're going to set the range number 2 variable equal to the active cell, which is now C5. Hit the F8 key, and you can see we're going to select everything from A1 to the bottom right hand corner. and there we go. Okay, and that's the way you would actually define a data set and find, almost manually finding the corners, but you've automated that, how you would do it manually, by writing these statements. All right, so that's it for this lesson. Hope you enjoyed the video and look forward to seeing you next time.